Cute.
Yes, Ashley did a great job on that. So it was Memorial Day, of course. It's a time to honor the sacrifice, I suppose. There's like the idea of what Memorial Day should be, and then there's what it actually is. If you have family members that served and you wanna, reflect on their sacrifice, I think that's perfectly fine. Generally, it's used to bash people into submission under like the guise of patriotism and tell them to never question anything, even if it's explicitly bad for the soldiers. Sometimes it's even worse than that, though. So we're gonna be profiling a few of the worst odes to Memorial Day, starting with Donald Trump, who notably not only did not serve, but worked as hard as he's ever worked in his life to avoid serving, who bleated this: "Happy Memorial Day to all, but especially to those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for the country they love." That's great so far, perfectly fine. End the bleat there. Unfortunately, he didn't. He goes on to say, "And to those in line of a very different but equally dangerous fire, stopping the threats of the stopping the threats of the terrorists, misfits, and lunatic thugs who are working feverishly from within to overturn and destroy our once great country, which has never been in greater peril than it is right now. We must stop the communist, Marxist, and fascist pigs at every turn and make America great again." He was able to do like a dozen words of yeah, the soldiers, but really it's about those of us who are trying to stop the commies. Equally dangerous, he said. He didn't say comparable. He didn't say equally important. He said equally dangerous. This is like, if stolen valor is a thing, this is as stolen as valor can be. He said, yeah, the storming of Germany or something. But me, I debated Joe Biden, and that's equally dangerous. Francesca, what do you think?
I just am reminded of, I think news broke, we called Trump like zombie Nixon, where like, he's just kind of like, yeah, if you were to exhume Nixon's body and like reanimate him, you'd get Donald Trump, throw a little bit of Reagan in there, of course, as well. But we are in a time. Think about like what he's hearkening back to, like the 60s, when there were there have been mass movements now, but like mass movements that fundamentally questioned, the way that things were, right? Whether it was the Vietnam War, whether it was extreme capitalism, now we have an even more extreme capitalism, and like I feel like we sort of let the words communists and Marxists kind of wash over us as if he's always been speaking this way, but he hasn't actually always been speaking this way. So that's something to note, when he's trying to like gain his sort of like fascist accolades, he's like, increasing his vocab. But again, we remember Donald Trump being the person who, visited a World War I memorial and was like, "What's this again? Who do I? Whose first wife was buried here? Is this a golf course?" Like, he has no idea. He doesn't understand sacrifice. He doesn't care. He thinks they're losers. He said basically they are losers. And Memorial Day, let's remember, is different than Veterans Day, right? It's to honor the people who died, gave the greatest sacrifice, in large part for wars for treasure, right? For oil, to stop communism in the case of Vietnam. So I mean, it's very ironic that like here you have, however many hundreds of thousands of Americans died in the Vietnam War to stop communism, as if that were any threat to Americans whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then you have him in the same breath saying, "And now we're still stopping commies, man."
Sure.
Like 60 years later.
Yeah. And look, there are certainly people back then, the same as now, that love the idea of being able to kill some people or whatever. And I don't feel like I need to honor those people. But even though I acknowledge that effectively every war for many, many decades has not been waged for anything approaching the way that it's been presented to people, you can still honor the fact that many of these people thought that's what they were doing. Bravery as a result of, bravery and self-sacrifice as the result of deception is still bravery and self-sacrifice.
Yes.
It's kind of sad, it's tragic, in a whole nother way because of the way they were lied to, but it's still brave and it's still sacrifice. So that's fine.
No, it's honor the war. It's honor the warrior and not the war, right? Gotta come back to remember that.
Yes, and look, you were mentioning how Trump has talked over time. Well, I just thought let's flash back, because that was obviously a pretty bad ode to Memorial Day. But back in 2018, this is 5 years ago, he tweeted at that time, "Happy Memorial Day," which just seems like a weird way to say it. There's got to be a better thing than Happy Memorial Day. How about I recognize Memorial Day or something, or somber Memorial Day, not happy. Like that doesn't seem right. But anyway, he says, "Those who died for our great country would be very happy and proud at how well our country is doing today. Best economy in decades, lowest unemployment numbers for blacks and Hispanics ever." I don't even like having to read that in his voice. "And women in 18 years, rebuilding our military and so much more. Nice." Like 4 of those words were about the soldiers that had died. And then he immediately is like, "But let me talk about me and all the great work that I'm doing." Obviously he's lying about that work. But even if it was true, that's not about the soldiers, that's about you, buddy. Stop trying to make everything about you. And it's so pointless. I mean, not that it matters. His supporters are immune to reason and self-reflection. But just doing one of the stereotypical oh, our soldiers things, that is also done to benefit you, but you don't talk directly about yourself. You just look like the person who loves the soldiers. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.